Today's section is about graphing systems of linear inequalities. So pretty much everything that we're going to be doing in this, we've already done. The only thing is that we're going to put a little bit more into it. We're going to do an extra step. So what we're going to do, you can see in front of you is what we call a system of inequalities. And you don't actually have to do much solving. All you need to do is graph. And you're not going to have an answer in the end that's a number. Your answer in the end is actually just going to be a graph. So I'll show you how to do this one. What we're going to do is we're going to start by graphing one of our inequalities. I have y is less than 3x. So there's a few things about this that you need. You need to know that the slope of this line is going to be 3. I'm going to write it as 3 over 1. The y-intercept, so there is no y-intercept listed, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It means that it's just going to be 0. We are going to be shading below the line, and also it's a dotted line, or a dashed line. So my recommendation as you do this is you're going to draw your line nicely. Start with your intercept. Go up 3, right 1. Draw your dashed line like you would normally. However, the next thing I want you to do, I'm hoping you're using pencil. If you're not, you should be. So the important thing that you're going to do right now that I would like you to do is I would like you to make sure that you shade lightly. There's a reason for that. The other thing is if you don't want to shade it right now, because you don't have pencil or something, if you don't want to do it lightly, the other thing you can do is you can use highlighter. It'll actually look really nice in the end if you do highlighter, and you'll see why. So we're going to shade, we're shading below, and it looks like that. So then I'm going to do the same thing with my other inequality. The y is greater than negative 2x plus 1. That one has a slope of negative 2. I'm going to write that over 1. The y-intercept is at 1. The line is going to be solid, and we're going to shade above. So that one, we're going to start with our intercept at 1. We go down 2, right 1. And we are going to now draw our line through there. So once again, I recommend that you shade lightly, or if you want to use a highlighter, you can. And so now I'm going to shade it above the line. So this graph to me looks kind of messy, but actually I'm going to use a different color, or if you have pencil, you could just make it darker at this area. And I'm going to shade in the solution. So the solution is going to be where the two areas or the two regions intersect. So on this one, I use purple and yellow. So everywhere where the graph is both purple and yellow is going to be my solution. So I'm going to show that in blue. And that's going to be my answer. It's really important when you're doing these that when you're taking a test or a quiz, you need to make sure that the person grading it can tell where it's shaded. Otherwise, you're probably not going to get full credit. So if you want, you can always like draw an arrow and say, oh, this is my solution. Or if you use pencil, you can always, one thing you can even do is you can actually even erase the stuff around it. You don't have to, but it's an idea. And then I can really tell when I grade it what what part is actually supposed to be shaded. So however you can show me that you know what the shaded region is fine with me. So then the last thing, this is kind of optional when you're doing your homework. However, when you're doing something like a test or a quiz, I recommend that you always do this, and that's to check your answer. So to check, you can choose any point in the shaded area. And if I look at my shaded area, it doesn't really matter what you choose, but I'm going to try to find something that I know 100% is in that blue area. So I'm just going to choose something right here. Choose anything easy. So this one to me looks like it's about 3, 0. So that's going to be my chosen point. This is, like I said, it's optional, but recommended on a test or quiz. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take both of your inequalities and make sure that that point 3, 0 is going to work in this equation, is going to work in each one of those. So I'm going to start with y is less than 3x. If I choose the point 3, 0, my 3 is my x, my 0 is my y. I get 0 is less than 3 times 3. That means 0 is less than 9. So that one works. I'm happy about that. And then I'll do the same for the other inequality, that y is greater than or equal to negative 2x plus 1. Once again, my x is 3, my y is 0. I get 0 is greater than or equal to negative 2 times 3 plus 1. That gives me 0 is greater than or equal to negative 5. That is also true. So I'm happy. I know that I got it right because my point is in my shaded area. If you find out that one of these two inequalities is not going to work and the point that you choose doesn't work, then that means you have to go back and check your shading because you probably made a mistake. For this problem, we have y is greater than negative x minus 2, and y is less than or equal to 3x plus 1. I would like you to try this on your own, so go ahead and pause and try it. So I'm going to start with this problem. I end up getting that my slope is negative 1. I'm going to write that over 1. My y-intercept is negative 2. My line is going to be dashed. I'm going to shade above the line. So I'm going to start at my intercept, which is at negative 2. I go down 1, right 1. And then I'm going to draw a dashed line. Then I will shade above my line. Next thing I'm going to do, same thing with the other inequality. I get that my slope is going to be 3. I'm going to write that over 1. My y-intercept is going to be positive 1. My line is going to be solid. And I'm going to shade below the line. So I will start at my intercept, which is at 1. I go up 3, right 1. And then I'll draw my line. Then since I'm shading below, I'll go below it. The last thing I need to do is show my answer. Make sure that it's darker than everything around it or it's a different color. Make sure it's very clear that the person looking at it and grading it, which is me, is going to be able to tell what it is your shaded area. So I'm going to do it in green. I'm going to make it darker. You can even erase the other things around it if you want to. That's fine. And that's what my final answer should look like. So the last thing I'm going to do, I will check it. I think that's a good idea. This one is really nice because like the easiest point on the entire graph is in my shaded area, which is 0, 0. So go ahead and choose that one to check. So So I'm going to substitute 0, 0 into both of these inequalities and make sure that I get a true statement. So I get 0 is greater than negative 0, which there is no such thing as negative 0, it's just 0. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. That one's true, so I'm happy about that. My second one, I have y is less than or equal to 3x plus 1. That gives me 0 is less than or equal to 3 times 0 plus 1. Or 0 is less than 1, which is also true. So I know that my answer is good. So my last problem is tricky, and there's actually two things about it that are tricky. So the first thing is that my top inequality, there is no x in it. However, if I know that if I just have y in a number, it is going to be a horizontal line. The other thing I know is that my horizontal line is going to be at 2, and also that it's solid, and that I'm going to shade above. So those are the three things that I will get from this. The second one is also a really tricky one, because I have a few things going on. In order to graph this, I need to solve for y first. So I'm going to start by subtracting x from both sides. That gives me negative 4y is greater than negative 8 minus x. If you want, rather than doing what I just did, you can actually write it as negative x minus 8. Put the x first, just to make it easier on yourself. The next step is to divide everything by negative 4 so I can get that y by itself. So then on the left-hand side, I just have a y. That one's nice and easy. However, I need to remember my important step of switching around my inequality sign. Please do not forget that. The other thing on the other side that's tough is that I have negative x over negative 4. Just remember, if you have negative x over negative 4, it's the same as negative 1x over negative 4. So that's like I have negative 1 over negative 4, which is the same as 1 over 4. Because negative divided by a negative always gives us a positive. And then I just have my x. The next thing a lot of people forget is you also have to divide the 8 by negative 4. So negative 8 divided by negative 4 gives me a positive 2. So that is my second inequality. It was long to get there, but I got it, and now I'm going to graph it. So I know a few things. I know that my slope is 1 over 4, and that my y-intercept is 2. I also know that my line is going to be shaded below. And also, I know that it is going to be a dashed line. So let's get this one going. I'm going to start by graphing my intercept at 2. Then I'm going to use my slope. I go up 1 and write 4. And then I will draw a dashed line. From there, I am going to shade below my line. So looking at this, it almost looks like there's no solution at all, but actually there is a solution. It's just super duper small. It's going to be this little tiny triangle where the yellow and green that I have intersect. So this is my solution area. If you want, you can go back and erase everything else. Feel free to do that if you want to, or you could just keep it as it is. My recommendation, though, is you use another color that's darker than the other two, or you take your pencil, make sure everything around it's light, and that the shaded area in the middle is the darkest out of all of it. And you can also check your answer on this. I am going to check it by trying to find a point that I can tell where it is. It's a little bit hard, but I can see that right here on my grid, I have a point that looks like it's at about 6, 3. So that just barely makes it on my graph. So I will check it with that one. And so I'm going to start with my y is greater than or equal to 2. That seems super weird, but actually my x is 6, my y is 3. So all I'm going to do is substitute my 3 in, and I know that's true. That one I'm really good at. I'm sure that's true. 3 is definitely bigger than 2. So then I'm going to do the same with my other original equation. This one's a little more complicated, but not impossibly so. So I get 6 minus 4 times 3 is greater than negative 8. That gives me 6 minus 12 is greater than negative 8, or negative 6 is greater than negative 8. So now we're working with negatives, and negative 6 is bigger than negative 8. So that one is also true. So I know that my shading is probably pretty good.